Welcome back to Pokemon episode summaries. Today, I'm doing episode 263. Here's looking at you, Elkid. The episode begins with Ash and the gang on their way to Mount Silver, though stopping for some lunch in a forest. Since Mount Silver was getting pretty close, so Ash and the gang figured that they could take a break now. Misty and Brock watched a Larvitar eat and tried to ask it if it was enjoying its meal. Seeing that it definitely seemed as though Larvitar was, so Misty and Brock figured that they could try and talk to Larvitar while it was in a good mood, and maybe the Larvitar would come around to them. But as soon as Misty and Brock started talking to it, Larvitar began to get extremely uncomfortable and shy yet again. Ash, of course, assumed that Misty and Brock had to be the cause of Larvitar getting upset, and came to the conclusion that Misty and Brock would never be able to get on Larvitar's good side. However, Ash and the gang soon realized that Larvitar wasn't actually uncomfortable from Brock and Misty, but it was mad because some of its food was currently being stolen. Ash and the gang tried to look for the perpetrator, only for Larvitar to point it out, as he pointed to a nearby bush that was shaking. Suddenly, the culprit came out of the bush, having ate Larvitar's food, an Elekid, which Ash used his Pokedex on to learn more about, and found out that it was the pre-evolution of Electabuzz, and was known for its relatively large ears, when the rest of its body was pretty small. The Elekid then makes Larvitar even more upset, as it steals the remainder of its food that Larvitar was still eating, and Misty gets angry as well, in order to show the Larvitar that she cared about it. Pikachu was pissed off as well, wanting to stand up for its friend Larvitar, as it goes to use Thunderbolt on Elekid, leading Elekid to try and respond with a Thunderbolt of its own. Ash knew that these two electric attacks combining could be a complete fucking disaster, so he tried to stop his Pikachu and the Elekid from attacking the Elekid. However, he ended up getting shocked by Elekid and his Pikachu as a result, because they didn't listen. Although Elekid showed no regard for Ash after this, Pikachu obviously showed remorse, apologizing to Ash, as Ash finally was able to explain that he wanted the conflict to be resolved without attacks. Despite Elekid still not wanting to apologize to Pikachu for firing an electric attack, he did go up to the Larvitar to apologize to it, since he seemingly wasn't aware that Larvitar's food was Larvitar's food, so it just took it because it was hungry, thinking that it didn't belong to anyone, I guess. Even though Larvitar was really trying to eat it, but we could blame this on Elekid losing its sight because it was so fucking hungry or something. Anyways, Elekid goes up to the very distressed Larvitar and apologizes to it, patting its back to try and calm it down. However, Larvitar wasn't able to get calm from this pat, since it still believed that Elekid was out to steal even more from it. Well, it seems as though Larvitar shouldn't have been too worried about Elekid, as the two Pokemon had bigger problems, as Team Rocket then showed up and launched a net down from their Meowth balloon to capture both Larvitar and Elekid inside, therefore interrupting Elekid and Larvitar's conversation and Elekid's attempts to befriend Larvitar and make things up to him. Team Rocket then gloats about their capture, stating that they found the perfect opportunity to take Larvitar as well as Elekid, and took it, as Ash spots Team Rocket and sends out his Bayleaf to cut the net, using a Razor Leaf. But Team Rocket just laughs, as they reveal that the leaves would do absolutely nothing to the net, since it was actually made out of steel. Bayleaf tries a few more Razor Leaves, causing Team Rocket to laugh even more. Bayleaf's Razor Leaves truly were futile, allowing James to send out his wheezing and have it use Smokescreen to blind Ash and the gang and make them cough, which allows Team Rocket to make their escape. Inside the Meowth balloon, Team Rocket were very happy with their new captures as they flew away, planning to have a huge celebration, when suddenly, when James was about to taunt the Elekid for how easily they caught it, Elekid gets angry and uses a Spark Attack, combined with a Thunder Shock, causing James to fall to the ground in the basket, and also causing a hole to be formed in the Meowth balloon's basket, as the spark goes through the net. And although it doesn't break the net, the hole in the basket means that Larvitar and Elekid go plummeting down out of the Meowth balloon, landing on the grass, as Jessie scolds James for making the Elekid angry enough to escape. With the net falling to the grass, Elekid was able to break free from it, but noticed when it landed that Larvitar was still falling inside of the net. So Larvitar tried to free itself, but it was too weak, so Elekid knew that it would have to catch the net when it fell to the ground, and it did, making sure that Larvitar was okay. Thankfully, Larvitar was uninjured, as was Elekid, although Larvitar was nervous being without Ash, and suggested that he and Elekid go back to look for Ash. Seeing Larvitar distressed, Elekid saw the perfect opportunity to finally make it up to Larvitar for what had happened earlier, as he promises to help Larvitar find Ash, explaining that he knew the forest inside and out. Essentially, he knew where every location was. So, Larvitar and Elekid began searching for Ash and the gang, while Ash and the gang were searching for signs of Team Rocket, thinking that they still had Elekid and Larvitar. Unfortunately, Ash and the gang couldn't find any sign of Team Rocket or Elekid and Larvitar, making Ash very sad and concerned, as he was worried about what Team Rocket might be doing to Larvitar, thinking that they may hurt it like the poachers did, and therefore make it trust humans even less. Just then, Brock noticed something moving in the bushes, and soon found it to be a Meganium, which Ash had never seen before, so he scanned it with his Pokedex to learn more information, and found out that Meganium was the final evolution of Chikorita, or the evolved form of Bayleaf. Seemingly only because of this, the Meganium goes up to Bayleaf, wanting to talk to its pre-evolution. However, Ash notices that it seems like this Meganium and Bayleaf knew each other, and suddenly realized why, as Casey emerged from the bushes, greeting them, being extremely glad to see them, remarking that it had been a very long time since they've seen each other. Ash acknowledged this, but was too surprised to say much else, since He certainly didn't expect Casey's Chikorita to evolve into Meganium before his Bayleaf evolved. Also just shocked to see Casey as well, as it had been a long time, like she had said. Seeing how Ash was basically too stunned to say anything, Casey took the conversation into her own hands as she started ranting about baseball and just talking non-stop about it, and how she was now the third batter on her baseball team. Once this rant was finally done, Casey noticed that Ash's Chikorita had evolved into a Bayleaf since the last time she saw him, and instead of congratulating Ash on this, she merely questioned why it was still a Bayleaf and hadn't evolved into Meganium yet. Questioning why the fuck it was still a Bayleaf, Ash replied that he didn't really feel the need to have his Bayleaf evolve into Meganium because he liked Bayleaf, but Casey responded that Meganium was better than Bayleaf, having improved speed and force, comparing Bayleaf to being suited for minor leaguers in baseball, while Meganium was meant for the high players. Ash tries to defend Bayleaf, but he can't, as Casey just gets even more annoyed and continues to use baseball analogies to say how her Meganium was better than Bayleaf, and since Ash barely understood baseball, he couldn't understand Casey's insults to Bayleaf, so he couldn't defend it. Casey soon gets bored of Ash not responding to any of her insults, so she changes the subject, explaining that she had more important news, being the reason why she was in this forest in the first place, which was because she had spotted a wild Elekid and was very, very determined to catch it, not only because it was her favorite color combination of striped yellow and black, but it could also evolve into the Pokemon that she had been wanting to catch her entire life, Electabuzz, and once she had an Electabuzz, then she could use it to really cheer for her favorite baseball team, Team Electabuzz, and maybe even deliver the Electabuzz to Team Electabuzz as their new mascot or something. However, she sadly clarifies that when she had tried to capture the Elekid, she missed the Pokeball, despite trying the absolute best she could, and as a result, Elekid ran away, which made her extremely disappointed. Casey quickly got over her disappointment, though, and got back her absolute determination to capture the Elekid, asking Ash and the gang if they had seen it since it ran away. Ash realized that the same Elekid that was taken by Team Rocket was likely the one that Casey saw, so informed Casey that yes, Ash and the gang had saw the Elekid, leading Casey to excitedly cut Ash off and start shaking him, asking him where, which finally allowed Ash to clarify. But Team Rocket had stolen it, making Casey very disappointed, once again, putting her head down in shame. Casey then had another very quick mood swing, though, as she changed from disappointed to determined once again, stating that she would do everything in her power to beat Team Rocket and get the Elekid back from them, even if she had to battle Team Rocket for a long time. Ash and the gang revealed that they were currently looking for Team Rocket, so Casey decides to join them, wanting to find Team Rocket as soon as possible, not knowing that they currently weren't in possession of Larvitar and Elekid, as Larvitar and Elekid continued trying to find Ash and the gang, although Larvitar soon stopped, as its stomach grumbled, indicating it was hungry. Elekid heard Larvitar's stomach grumble, and realized that Larvitar being hungry was its fault, since Elekid ate all of Larvitar's lunch, so Elekid made it his duty to find some food for Larvitar, and luckily, the two of them stumbled upon an apple tree. Elekid instantly tries to reach up to the tree and grab 2 apples for him and Larvitar, but he wasn't tall enough, so he instead resorted to using Thundershock on the tree to knock 2 apples down, and he picks one up for himself and hands one to Larvitar, leading Larvitar to thank Elekid and go to chow down on the apple, although Elekid notices that Larvitar was just about to bite the apple gently, and this didn't please Elekid, as it bit its own apple, taking an extremely big bite, telling Larvitar that that's how you took a real bite, and continued to scarf down the apple, hoping that Larvitar would do the same, though warning him to be a little more less reckless than him when he ate, since Larvitar was a bit smaller. Larvitar didn't oblige to that last part, though, as Larvitar really appreciated Elekid taking the time to show him the proper way to eat an apple, or taking the time to do anything with him at all, and he decides to honor this by taking a huge-ass bite of the apple, and even Elekid had to admit that that was pretty cool, as it put its arm around Larvitar to showcase their new friendship even more, leading Larvitar to thank Elekid for that other friendly gesture. While Larvitar and Elekid finished eating, Team Rocket was standing by a tree and looking for any signs of Elekid and Larvitar with binoculars, wanting to reclaim them. However, after searching for quite a while, James began to get hesitant that all the effort they were putting into searching would actually be worth it just for 2 small Pokemon. As for Meowth, though, he was able to stay determined to capture the Elekid and Larvitar, as he had a fantasy regarding Giovanni and what would happen if they managed to give Larvitar and Elekid to him. This fantasy involved Giovanni using Elekid to power his electrically charged razor to shave his mustache, and Giovanni using Larvitar to remind him of how fucking awesome Jesse and James and Meowth were, since they gave him a Larvitar whenever all the other Team Rocket grunts failed him, and he needed to remind himself of some actual good employees. James began to fantasize with Meowth, hoping that the fantasy would come true, but Jessie had her doubts, reminding James and Meowth that they first had to find Elekid and Larvitar before they even wasted any time fantasizing. Just then, Jessie managed to spot Elekid and Larvitar. Meowth noticed that they were walking by, quite fast though, and told Jessie and James to not let them escape, as Team Rocket threw yet another net to the Elekid and Larvitar, trapping them inside the net again, as Team Rocket then go into their Meowth balloon and attach the net to the bottom. Elekid tries to escape using a Thundershock, but Team Rocket just laughed, as the net was electric-proof. Ha ha ha, so funny. Meowth was so confident that Larvitar and Elekid wouldn't escape again that he went back to fantasizing about Giovanni, only for Larvitar to then use a deafening screech, forcing Team Rocket to plug their ears in pain, stating their distaste for the sound. Even more fortunately, though, not only was Team Rocket pretty affected by this, but the screech was so loud that Ash and the gang were able to hear it. Damn, imagine what Elekid was able to hear, being that close up to Larvitar. Anyways, Ash and the gang noticed that it was Larvitar screeching, and looked for it, only to see Team Rocket's balloon pass by, holding Elekid and Larvitar in the net, who were currently crying in fear. especially Larvitar, since, you know, it screeched out whenever it was scared. Ash shouted out to Larvitar, letting it know that Team Rocket were distracted and had covered their ears, and this, combined with the fact that it saw Ash, calmed Larvitar down, so it stopped crying. Team Rocket then spotted Ash and the gang, but simply laughed some more, still confident that Ash and the gang wouldn't be able to do anything, because, you know, they were flying away in their Meowth balloon, so what if their ears were closed? However, Casey was determined to help the Elekid, and had her Meganium use Razor Leaf on the rope that was keeping the net attached to the Meowth balloon. And then, Meganium fired another Razor Leaf to actually cut open the net, sending Elekid and Larvitar tumbling down. Jessie was instantly pissed off and confused by this, thinking that the net was made of steel and still Razor Leaf proof, but much to her dismay, James reveals that he swapped out the Razor Leaf proof steel net for a electric proof one. With Larvitar and Elekid now back on the ground safe, not having sustained much damage from the fall, Casey and Ash were relieved, but Brock reminded them that Team Rocket was still at large, and decided to take matters into his own hands, as he sent out his Fortress, and had it use Rapid Spin to fly up to the Meowth balloon, popping it and sending Team Rocket blasting off. With Team Rocket gone, Ash and the gang and Casey ran to where they thought they saw Elekid and Larvitar land, only to see the empty net, and no Elekid and Larvitar. However, they realized that this was because the net had landed on the edge of a cliff, and Elekid and Larvitar must have fallen down the cliff when they fell out of the net. Since Ash and the gang couldn't see Elekid and Larvitar, though, they decided to run around into the forest to get to the bottom of the cliff from another way to search for Elekid and Larvitar. As for Elekid and Larvitar themselves, they were eventually spotted by Ash and the gang when they caught up to them, as Ash noticed that Larvitar and Elekid seemed a little hurt from the fall after all, so Ash went to go comfort them, only for Elekid and Larvitar to not actually notice Ash and the gang, so they had begun to run off in another direction to try and find them, with Elekid forcibly pushing Larvitar with him by the hand. Although quickly stopped when he realized that Larvitar was displeased by this, and he obviously didn't want to displease his friend, especially since Larvitar proceeded to follow him without the dragging. Essentially, what had happened was Ash and the gang spotted Elekid and Larvitar, but Elekid and Larvitar didn't spot them, so they had continued onwards into the forest, trying to look for Ash and the gang, with Larvitar and Elekid shaking their hands, solidifying their new friendship even more. Meanwhile, as for Team Rocket, who had been blasted off into the woods, landing directly on the Magikarp salesman that James always seemed to run into. The Magikarp salesman was initially pissed the fuck off at, being knocked over when he was landed on, but he figures that he could get his revenge on the Team Rocket for falling on him by scamming them with a Magikarp, like he usually did. And James, as usual, was about to buy this Magikarp, being interested in it, when he suddenly remembers that this was the salesman who had scammed him before, and when the salesman takes a closer look at James, he realizes that he was James as well, and knew that James would get angry. So he tried to run away, as James chased after him and pinned him down to the ground, reminding him of the previous scams that the salesman had pulled on him, including the one on the SSN. And we see a flashback of this as James demands a refund, explaining that he would never fall for the salesman's tricks again, and wanted the salesman to make up for trading him a Magikarp that proved to be a disaster instead of a huge profit like he promised. But the salesman just laughed. Even when James explains to him what Team Rocket went through when the SSN shipwrecked, when they were thrown into the sea and almost drowned thanks to the Gyarados. And the salesman clarified that he could only give refunds if what he had initially sold James was returned, and James obviously couldn't do that since he no longer had the Gyarados with him, which pissed James off, and James got even more pissed off when the salesman revealed that even if James did give him the Magikarp back, he still couldn't repay him, as the salesman had already spent all the money that James gave him. The salesman then laughed sheepishly some more, as he revealed that even though he couldn't give James his money back, he could give him a brand new Pokemon in exchange for another one of any kind. James knew that this would likely be a scam as well, but couldn't help himself when he inquired what this Pokemon he would get was, as he was desperate to get a new one to be able to stop Ash and the gang better, leading the salesman to let out a Weepinbell from a Pokeball, explaining that it was special since it could use Sweet Scent, which was a move that could attract nearly any nearby Pokemon to the area, and Jessie and Meowth were excited by this, realizing that they could use the Sweet Scent to attract a whole bunch of Pokemon that they could capture, making the captures extremely easy. And upon hearing that all Team Rocket had to do to get this Weepinbell was trade one of their own Pokemon, they instantly jumped at the chance, since Weepinbell would likely be better than most of their Pokemon anyways. James agreed to the trade as well, as he, Meowth, and Jessie gathered in a bush to discuss which of their Pokemon they should trade. James and Jessie initially agreed to trade Meowth, though Meowth protests that Jessie and James needed him since he was the brains of Team Rocket, leading Jessie and James to admit that he was right, and Jessie then suggests that they trade Weezing, but James stated that Weezing was very important as well, since they always used it for its smoke screens to escape. James then suggested that they trade Wobbuffet, as he annoyedly forcibly popped out of its Pokeball, but Jessie refused this, since they needed Wobbuffet to do useful counterattacks sometimes. This led James to instead suggest that Jessie trade her Arbok, but Jessie got extremely mad at James for this, knocking him down, as she stated that she could never part with her Arbok since they had been friends since she was a little kid. And she had gotten her Arbok for her birthday when she was little. This led Jessie to then suggest that Team Rocket trade Victreebel, as he was the only expandable one. James obviously refused this, claiming that he was very attached to Victreebel, but Meowth and Jessie rebutted that Victreebel was useless since it barely even battled, and all it did was try and eat James. James didn't deny this, but stated that despite that, him and Victreebel had a lot of great memories together. With James not budging, Team Rocket held a vote to determine if they should, and unfortunately for James, he was the only one who said that they shouldn't trade Victreebel, as Jessie and Meowth did, with even Wobbuffet jumping in to recommend trading Victreebel as well. James was crying with sadness, but when Jessie angrily demanded that James give her the Pokeball, James didn't want to get fucking hurt, so he decided to agree and gave Jessie Victreebel's Pokeball to trade away, which she did. placing Victory Bell's Pokeball on the salesman's portable trade machine as the trade was then complete. As Jessie takes Weepin' Bell's Pokeball, as the salesman runs away, informing that there would never be any possible trade backs, Team Rocket had to take the Weepin' Bell no matter what, making sure to take James's Victory Bell's Pokeball with him, along with his portable trade machine and the rest of his shit, so that nothing could be traded back. Jessie and Meowth had no intention of trading Victory Bell back, as they were immensely happy with the trade, excited to have Weepin' Bell use Sweet Scent, but James was still distraught at losing his Victory Bell, as he calls for the salesman to come back, only to realize that the salesman was long gone. James already really missed Victory Bell, so he decided to send out his Weepin' Bell to try and cheer him up, since he now had a new Pokemon. And, well, Jessie and Meowth seemed to like the new Weepin' Bell, being very excited, particularly thinking it was beautiful because it was a female. James remarked that this Weepin' Bell could never replace his Victory Bell, as seeing the Weepin' Bell only made him more sad, as he remembered first encountering his Victory Bell as a Weepin' Bell, recalling when he first got it and had it train against his Weezing, only for him to then leave it at the breeding center, which turned out to be a scam. But either way, Victory Bell did end up evolving because of that, which allowed James and Victory Bell to have many glorious times, which involved more than just battling Ash and the gang. They would bathe in the sauna together, they would sleep together, they would eat together with Victory Bell eating Pokemon food, and James trying his best to eat real food, and all the time, Victory Bell would try and eat James, and James admitted that he actually liked this at the end of the day. Jessie and Meowth were getting annoyed with James stating his sappy memories aloud, so they decided to cheer themselves up by ordering Weepin' Bell to use Sweet Scent to attract some Pokemon that they could capture. But, much to their dismay, Weepin' Bell didn't listen to them, leading Jessie and Meowth to remind James that since Weepin' Bell had been traded for Victory Bell, Weepin' Bell was technically only James's Pokemon, and they threatened to harm him if James didn't tell it to use Sweet Scent. James didn't want to get his ass beat, and he realized that even if Weepin' Bell couldn't replace his Victory Bell, he may be able to try and catch a whole new Pokemon if he used Weepin' Bell's Sweet Scent, one that he actually really liked, and wouldn't remind him of his past with Victory Bell and make him sad. So he told Weepin' Bell to use Sweet Scent so that it could attract a Pokemon, and as a result, a cloud of scent formed around Team Rocket as Jessie and Meowth fanned it to help spread it across the forest. Jessie saw that James wasn't helping, as he was still somewhat sad, and since James didn't want to get his ass beat by Jessie again, he decided to help fan the Sweet Scent, although only helping a little bit, as he couldn't do much while he was on his knees crying. The Sweet Scent then spreads far enough to attract Elekid and Larvitar as they were walking, although Larvitar was able to snap out of it and tried to pull Elekid back as it continued to walk towards the source of the scent, meaning that Larvitar's attempts to hold Elekid back were not working very well. The Sweet Scent was also attracting both Meganium and Pikachu as Ash and the gang continued to search for Larvitar and Elekid. Ash and the gang and Casey didn't initially realize the Sweet Scent was in the air, but they did when Misty's Togepi began to get attracted towards it as well, and tried to jump out of Misty's arms to follow it, and Pikachu and Meganium started to follow the Sweet Scent, with Brock coming to the conclusion that there was indeed a Sweet Scent in the air, with Casey agreeing. Misty then suggested that Larvitar and Elekid were probably being lured by the Sweet Scent as well, when Brock explained that Sweet Scent had the ability to lure in any Pokemon, so because of that, Ash and the gang decided to follow Pikachu, Meganium, and Togepi as they walked towards the scent, hoping that they would find Larvitar and Elekid there. Meanwhile, Team Rocket were on lookout by the Weepin' Bell, hoping to find Elekid and Larvitar coming towards them, as they realized that this could definitely be possible, since Elekid and Larvitar had escaped and would likely be attracted by the Sweet Scent. James tried to look out as well, but he was still too sad. Team Rocket then see Elekid and Larvitar approach, and Jessie and Meowth get excited that their strategy had worked. But just then, they begin to panic a little bit as they see that Pikachu and Meganium were coming, along with Ash and the gang, realizing that Sweet Scent wasn't all super sweet, as it had brought their enemies towards them as well, attracting all the Pokemon in the area. This led Jessie and Meowth to scold the Weepin' Bell, when suddenly, Ash and the gang approached Larvitar and Elekid, along with Meganium and Pikachu as well. So, Ash ran up to go retrieve Larvitar and Elekid, as Casey, Brock, and Misty followed him, but Team Rocket just laughed, as before Ash and the gang had actually arrived, when they saw them in the distance, they had had time to actually dig 2 pitfall traps, one for Elekid and Larvitar, and another for Ash and the gang and Casey, which they all proceeded to fall into, as Larvitar and Elekid fell into their trap when they were still walking towards Weepin' Bell, and Ash and the gang fell into their trap when they tried to retrieve Elekid and Larvitar. With Ash and the gang and Casey trapped, this allowed Team Rocket to run up to the hole with Elekid and Larvitar in it and grab them and begin running away with them, although Weepin' Bell's Sweet Scent then wore off, meaning that Larvitar, Elekid, Meganium, and Pikachu and Togepi had snapped out of it, so this allowed Casey to order her Meganium to use Vine Whip on a nearby branch to lift Ash and the gang and Casey out of the hole. This allowed Ash and the gang to catch up with Team Rocket before they could escape and demand Larvitar and Elekid back, although Team Rocket obviously refused, with mainly Jessie refusing, as she declared that if Ash and the gang wanted Larvitar and Elekid back, then they would have to beat them in a battle, as she sent out her Arbok, leading Casey to have her Meganium stand in Arbok's way, challenging it. James realized that he needed to help out Jessie, so he sent out his Weepin' Bell, although he was used to sending out his Victory Bell, so he ordered Weepin' Bell not to eat his face right now, like Victory Bell usually did, not wanting to get bitten. But Meowth reminds James that he was dealing with a Weepin' Bell right now, not a Victory Bell, which didn't even cheer up James, despite the fact that he wouldn't get bitten anymore, as he complained about having to use Weepin' Bell as opposed to his good friend Victory Bell. While James was distracted with his frustrations with Weepin' Bell, Ash sent out his Phanpy to help out Meganium, as Meganium had used Razor Leaf on Arbok, but Arbok was able to dodge the Razor Leaf and headbutt Meganium. Meganium tried to retaliate with a tackle, but Arbok was able to deflect the tackle by using Poison Sting. This finally led Fampy to take action. But before Fampy could attack Arbok, James's Weepinbell jumped in and used Razor Leaf, although Fampy was able to deflect the Razor Leaf by tackling Weepinbell. Fampy then goes in for a Rollo, which was able to do some good damage on Weepinbell, but Weepinbell was able to do even more damage on Fampy as it used a very strong Vine Whip on it, leading Meowth to come to the conclusion that Weepinbell was better than Victreebel since it actually had battle skills. Much to Meowth's dismay and James's pleasure, though, Weepinbell then evolves into a Victreebel due to getting off this strong attack. James was super happy to have a Victreebel back in his possession, and ordered it to attack, confident that he could win. But this Victreebel proved to disobey as well, insinuating that Weepinbell evolved, and they disobeyed as a result, as this Victreebel did not eat James, but this time tried to eat Jessie, leading Jessie to try her best to shake Victreebel off of her. While she was shaking, she ended up dropping the net, holding Larvitar and Elekid, which gave Brock the opportunity to take this distraction to his advantage, as he tried to get Elekid and Larvitar out of the net, only to realize that he needed Fortress's help, as he sent it out and had it use Rapid Spin on the net to cut it, freeing Larvitar and Elekid, making Ash extremely happy when he saw this. Just then, though, Ash and the gang gasped in shock as they noticed that Jessie had actually managed to get Victreebel off of her, shaking it off. Once Jessie got Victreebel off of her, she was still fuming mad and kicked it away, causing it to land on James. James jumped away in fear, not wanting the Victreebel to eat him, and he accidentally kicked it while he was running, much to his sadness. Because even though he didn't want Victreebel to eat him, he still didn't want to harm it in any way. He wanted to see if this Victreebel could truly be a replacement for his old one. Thankfully for James, though, Victreebel didn't go flying too far, as it simply landed on Arbok. Bad for James, though. This made Arbok angry, along with Jessie, who was angry that Victreebel just wouldn't go the fuck away, so she ordered her Arbok to attack Victreebel with its tail, which sent it blasting off, making James sad once more, as he cried. Jessie didn't care, though, as she simply wanted Larvitar and Elekid, ordering Arbok to go after them. However, before Arbok could reach Elekid and Larvitar, Casey stepped in, wanting to protect Elekid, and commanded her Meganium to use Razor Leaf a couple times, which knocked out Arbok. This led Jessie to take matters into her own hands and try and retrieve Larvitar and Elekid on her own, which just led Casey to order her Meganium to charge up a Solar Beam, which was enough to send all of Team Rocket blasting off. Meanwhile, back with the Magikarp salesman, Team Rocket, as well as the Victreebel, which Arbok had blasted off earlier, all landed by the Magikarp salesman, as he was currently being eaten by James' old Victreebel, getting angry, thinking that James had actually scammed him since he didn't tell him about Victreebel eating people, that serves you right, bitch, and kicking it off. However, due to him kicking off this Victreebel, it got sent flying into its old owner James, and as usual, immediately tried to bite James, as the new Victreebel was biting Jessie again. However, Jessie and James both shaked the Victreebel off, causing both Victreebel to slam into each other, which causes them to lock into each other's eyes, and the two Victreebel, being a male and female, fall in love with each other and dash through the forest, reaching a flower field, ready to live together forever, despite just meeting each other. And with that, the two Victreebel are never seen again. Yeah, that's right, Victreebel was really gone, leaving with James' new Victreebel, so now he only had one Pokemon left, being his Weezing. Man, I hope the two Victreebel have an awesome life. It sucks that we're not going to see Victreebel eat James anymore. Anyways, back with Ash and the gang. Since Team Rocket were gone, Elekid and Larvitar were extremely happy, with Larvitar being happy to reunite with Ash and the gang, but Elekid being happy that it and its friend could now hang out in peace again, as Elekid snuggled up to Larvitar. Although Larvitar did appreciate this, viewing the Elekid as its friend, it was still a bit shy. Casey then saved Larvitar from Elekid's forcefulness and its affection, as she then challenged Elekid to a battle, explaining that she wanted to capture it, and Elekid had been waiting to battle for quite a while, since it wasn't able to battle against Team Rocket due to the fucking electric-proof nets, so it gratefully accepted Casey's challenge, as Casey sent out her Meganium, and Elekid then goes in for the first attack, being a Thunder Shock, although Meganium counters the Thunder Shock with a Razor Leaf, only for Elekid to deflect the Razor Leaves with a Thunder Punch. Meganium then goes to tackle Elekid, although Elekid tries to use Thunder Shock on Meganium first, but Meganium dodges and is able to get the tackle off, weakening Elekid, and allowing Meganium to then go for Solar Beam to make Elekid fall on the ground backwards. With Elekid down, Casey knew it was her opportunity to throw a Pokeball, as she threw one, and although it took a while, as the Pokeball shook a bit, Elekid was successfully caught, as Casey held up her newly caught Pokemon in its Pokeball, and exclaimed with joy that she had finally completed her goal of capturing an Elekid, with her Meganium expressing its hype to have caught Elekid as well. As for Larvitar, it had been concerned for its friend Elekid during the whole battle, worrying that it was hurt, and it was especially worried after that last Solar Beam, although Casey comforted it, assuring Larvitar that she would take Elekid to the nearest Pokemon Center and get it healed up. Larvitar was still not convinced that Casey would do a good job with Elekid, as he was concerned with Elekid being captured, thinking that it should remain wild, but Casey cheered him up by assuring Larvitar that she would take care of Elekid, and she would use it to help cheer for her favorite baseball team, Team Electabuzz. Seeing that Casey's intentions seemed pure, Larvitar calmed down. Ash and the gang then congratulated Casey on her latest successful capture, with Casey thanking them and showing her badges that she had got, leaving Ash shocked that Casey had actually begun collecting them, as Casey showed off the 4 badges that she had and explained that she was not only going to use her Elekid to cheer for Team Electabuzz, but she was also going to use its strength to help her win her last 4 badges so she could enter the Johto League Silver Conference, though obviously not this year, but next year. Ash and the gang then wish Casey luck with getting those last 4 badges, as Ash reveals that he was going to compete in this year's Johto League Silver Conference, leading Casey to thank Ash for helping her locate Elekid, and also wish him good luck in this year's Silver Conference, wishing him some extra good luck as she sang the Lucky Themes song she always used to cheer on her favorite baseball team, the Electabuzz. She was singing super obnoxiously and loud though, and Ash didn't even like Team Electabuzz in baseball, so he, Misty, and Brock just walked away, embarrassed by Casey's loudness, just barely managing to say their goodbyes to Casey through her yelling.